Welcome back. You're watching the India Development Debate. Let's take a look at what's happening in the job market. It seems to be opening up, and I'm talking about white-collar formal jobs over here, not the overall economy. To know about the overall economy, we need to look at the latest CMIE data. That's the closest indicator we can see, and unemployment rates have been pretty decent at 7% for the month of July. Are we seeing an improvement overall in the job market, and are we seeing now certain sectors looking at very, very high demand? What is the reason for that? We're seeing that when we look at the attrition rates for IT companies when they declared their quarterly results. Cognizant seeing double-digit attrition rates, nearly more than 20%. The same for all the other top IT majors. So what really is going on? Let's get a sense of the job market. Manish Sabharwal and Sashi Kumar with me on the show. Welcome to both of you. Mr. Sabharwal, let me begin by asking you, would you say that the job market, at least for white-collar employees, has opened up in the last couple of months?
Oh, absolutely. The second wave was completely different from the first wave. I think corporate India had learned how to cope with lockdowns, and the digitization super cycle has kicked in. So I think the secular only guess you can make here is that 4 million IT employment goes to 10 million IT employment over the next near future. So for IT, it really is a super cycle that has been kicked off.
Okay, so what is the kind of demand, Mr. Sabharwal, just to follow up there, what is the kind of demand we're seeing? I mean, I saw a tweet by Bhavesh Agarwal of Ola the other day, a tongue-in-cheek tweet saying that, let me do all of my hiring now in San Francisco instead of Bangalore. Engineers might be cheaper there. So what is the kind of demand? At what level are these demands seeing? And is all of this talk about crazy remunerations and ways of luring in good talent actually true? Are you seeing it out there?
I mean, there will always be stories at the margin, but I think, India's has a good people supply chain for engineers. IT companies had started taking non-computer science engineers into technology a few years ago. In the last few years, we've even seen non-engineers go into, software code writing. So I would say that I'm not sure, talent is the binding constraint for these companies. Of course, costs are going up, but, India produces more engineers than the US and China combined. And I think that any company who wants to recruit will recruit. Now, obviously, kids would prefer to get paid as much as they can, and companies would prefer to pay as low as they can, but that train has left the station for companies.
Sashi, Kumar, both Teamlease and Indeed actually have put out surveys in the last couple of days. What are your latest numbers showing in terms of demand of hiring?
So from our data, from our survey, we see a 11% increase in hiring across from Q4 to Q1. I'm talking fiscal Q1. So April, May, June saw 11% increase, driven, like you rightly said, by a significant increase in hiring in information technology. Financial services also saw significant increases in hiring. BPO, ITES has also seen increase. So like you started off this program by talking about white collar roles starting to hire more. That's something which we've been able to see. And that's really driving the growth of jobs in India in the last 3 months.
Okay. Are you seeing that kind of an interest, Sashi, outside the IT space? Everyone knows about the IT space. Manish Sabharwal has just talked about 4 million jobs growing to 10 million jobs. But outside of the IT space, is the story the same, or is this only one industry-specific sort of turnaround that we're seeing?
So to sort of answer that question, you must understand what's driving the IT surge. What's happened over the last 1.5 to 2 years with the pandemic has been that companies have had to increase offerings which are available online, increase digitization. So this is essentially driving up, and also the uncertainty has meant a lot of large companies that are operate across the world need to get a control on costs, which means that they are offshoring jobs, or they have jobs which are increasing in countries like India. So that's really driving the IT surge. But apart from that, we're also seeing certain other categories pick up pretty well. We've seen financial sector hiring quite a lot. We're seeing sales and marketing roles open up, and hiring picking up in sales and marketing. We are also seeing in the lightly skilled segment, we're seeing logistics and delivery, which had in the early part of the first wave sort of not hired as much, and then started picking up. We're seeing a significant increase in their numbers as well, as Indians and people across the world, I'm sure, are getting used to this culture of having sitting at home and getting things delivered at home. So we've seen certain parts of the economy where there's been an increase in the number of open roles, increase in the number of people being hired, not limited to IT, but also across certain other sectors.
What about salaries and remuneration? Manish Sabharwal, what are the kind of trends that we're seeing on that front? It has, been a slow period for the job market, save a few sectors for the last year and a half, where, supply has not been more than demand in that sense. Are we seeing that reflect in remuneration, or is it different for different sectors? Is there one broad theme that you can place your finger on?
I think many companies and employees had accepted last year that they would not take increments, or costs were adjusted. All that has been reversed, I think, this year will probably be a good year for salaries. Now, across the board, see, sales, customer service, logistics, which are the fastest growing part of India's job market in terms of numbers, is really coming back quite strongly, not just because the second wave was not as damaging as the first wave economically, but companies who cut back very hard in the first wave regretted it later because they couldn't find people when the market bounced back quickly. So overall, I think that this is a year when, if COVID, we still can debate whether we are at the middle or the end of it, but if we are probably in the last mile of it, I think it'll be a good year for employee remuneration. It'll be a good year for bottom of the pyramid job creation. And I think it's also just a good start of a super cycle for India's, the reason we have 150 unicorns in the private unlisted, and we have 350 listed unicorns. So we probably have the highest ratio of billion-dollar companies unlisted to listed in the world. That just reflects the global recognition that we are the only large country in the world with 20 years of growth ahead of us. So if COVID has given us this policy window, I think we're looking at a super cycle of investments and also consequently jobs and salaries. But we obviously caveated by the fact that we are at the end of COVID.
Yeah, we don't know what that third wave, if it comes, what it's going to do. But the two sectors that have the highest employment, largely speaking, are tourism is one of them, real estate is another. This a quick question for Manish again. Are you seeing any kind of uptick in those sectors which really create large volumes, not necessarily very high paying jobs, but large volumes for sure?
No, tourism and hospitality is not back yet because there's tentativeness because of this whole third wave. Now, whether the third wave is a promise, a threat, or a bhoot, or a danger, nobody knows. But I think construction is starting to come back. There was a lot of pent-up demand. There obviously is a shift in the kind of demand if people are working from home. So I think construction, we are starting to see the pickup, and that's good for bottom of the pyramid employment. But tourism and hospitality, I think, will have to wait till vaccination critical mass, which is probably 60% of the population, or till it is clear that the third wave is not coming. So, I think 30% of restaurants may not come back. I think that's just a unfortunate reality. They'll be replaced by other new restaurants, but 30% of the old ones, 18 months is just too hard to maintain the fixed costs and rents of what the hospitality industry went through. We saw some capitulation by some hotels also. But I think now that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, if it's just another 3 months, we will see that come back quickly.
it all seems to depend on the rates of vaccinations. Sashi Kumar, your comments on these two sectors that I talked about, tourism, hospitality, real estate, just because these are large employment generators as well, are you seeing a pickup over there?
Yeah, just to touch on the earlier question as well once. So when we spoke about appraisals and salaries, in our survey, 70% of the employees that we spoke to said they haven't received promotions or pay increase. So that's where we were, I think, a carryover of the impact of the first wave. And possibly we will see this change, as Manish said, in the course of this year. Specifically with those two sectors, completely concur with Manish. I think we are at a stage where construction seems to be picking up, but hospitality and tourism is impacted. Tourism will continue to be impacted. Hospitality, specifically around restaurants, I think there is some uptick specifically with restaurants that are able to adopt to technology. We've seen a variety of new and innovative ways of delivering a food or a food service to consumers, aided by technology. I think there are some interesting threads there which will develop, and we'll see that sector evolve with a lot of assistance from technology.
Absolutely. Let's hope that there is an improvement. Just one last word from you, Sashi. Do you think that there has been enough vaccination now within companies to allow people to come back to work and increase hirings as well? At least in that one bubble of the formal sector, has vaccination been better than average?
Anecdotally speaking, and specifically in Bangalore, where I'm based out of, many companies have organized large vaccination drives. They've been able to vaccinate significant portions of their employees, at least with the first dose. So yes, that is helping, and obviously the aim is to be to reach a stage where they can reopen offices and get people back. Also, hand in hand, many companies are talking about hybrid work models where employees are able to work for a few days out of home and out of office. So I think in the next 3 or 6 months, we'll see a lot of interesting play in this space. There'll be new strategies that will evolve based on the experience over the last 24 months, keeping in mind what is good for hiring great talent, keeping in mind what is good for employees, and obviously keeping in mind what is good for business.
Manish, just your sense on where vaccinations are going, where work from office is going, or are people coming back in or moving to a hybrid place? I know we touched upon this a couple of weeks ago. Have you seen any change in that trajectory?
I think yes. I think most companies are getting to critical mass and are recognizing that most of us are making more withdrawals than deposits into social capital. So I think we won't force middle management back, but I think a number of companies are now asking senior management to come back. And I think that will be the tone from the top once you lead by example. So yes, I think that many companies are already at sort of 20-30% of their employee strength back in office, at least in Bangalore, some of the people in Hyderabad, some of the people in Chennai. I think North India is slower off the, Delhi is much slower. Bombay is obviously much slower because of this. But I think if you think of Bangalore, Hyderabad and Chennai, many companies are back to 20-30% because they are almost at 60 to 80% vaccination of their population. Now, some people came back saying that my family is not, I have parents at home. So many companies have organized family vaccination also and covered that in the last 2-3 weeks. So I think that will be the last straw. When families are vaccinated, then we can sort of issue a requirement for people to come in. At least I think the debate has firmly shifted to coordination costs. Which days of the week will you ask everybody to come? Because originally we thought everybody could choose which day they would work from home. But now people are realizing that if this has to work, everybody will have to be in office on the same days. And so I think that the shift from the conversation of will people come back to exactly how they will come back is just a precursor to another month or two, provided the third wave is weak and not as widespread.
Yeah, the third wave is the important factor. Reports today that the R0 has increased overall for India. The Kerala figures continue to be of concern. The 7-day average has been seeing a bump up, the kind that we saw in early April. So we need to keep a very, very close eye on these numbers and hope we are not going towards a third wave, or at least a dangerous third wave. Thank you so much, Manish Sabharwal and Sashi Kumar, for joining us as we took this check of what's happening in the job market out there.